private sector, and this has enabled us to reduce dependency on imports and were able to save several lives. Mr. Rajiv Nath, who is the moderator for the first session, has single-handedly united the industry and has been amazingly effective in bridging the gap between the industry and government in ensuring that. So we are fortunate that he is heading this panel, and I have heard him quite a few times, and I have also been to several places along with him where he passionately ensures that India is self-sufficient. In the second area that we are going to discuss is the building technology itself and also utilizing the existing infrastructure to meet the demand. Mr. Amit Mohan, Senior Vice President from Healthcare, and other panelists in the team will discuss on the details of technologies that are being established through innovation, utilizing the existing infrastructure and enhancing the capacity, and also effectively taking these technologies to the common man or an individual who needs this solution.
Starting from you, Abhinav, how do we reduce dependency on imports and in making India self-sufficient through various Make in India initiatives?
But the point I was saying is that you cannot expect to make products in the Western world and sell them into India. The cost of the wages is obviously much higher there. So we have to make products in India. We have to make it affordable. The challenge comes in the inverted duty structure. In diagnostics, a lot of the instruments are at 0% duty. And when you go to manufacture and you get the parts in, they're at 7.5% duty. So you can look at, there's a big parity issue. When you start manufacturing, you're paying 7.5%, and when you import, it's 0%. So the government has to look into this, and that will encourage manufacturing to start in the country. Yes, and recently the PPO is something that is in the right direction, the public procurement order, and that is something I think AMED has also pushed a lot for. And finally, we have got the PPO, which is supporting the Indian manufacturers. And right now, there is a lot of momentum going on where they are against imported products, specifically from our neighbors with whom we are sharing a land border. And that is something which is going the right direction. However, there are certain products listed there which are city of the origin is not correctly mentioned. There are still some products which are being imported and being mentioned as made in India. So that is something I think the GEM should take it forward and get only verified Indian manufacturers there. And that is something will go a long way, since the government is one of the largest procurements which are happening in the medical industry. So these two things, I think inverted duty structure and the public procurement order are the way to go forward for Make in India.
I think, there are a lot of issues pertaining to manufacturing and reducing our dependency of exports in India, imports to India. First is that, very few medical devices are manufactured in India. Some medical devices that are manufactured are typically, medium to low value. They may or may not have the requisite certifications like FDA or CE. So one of the essential things is that academia and industry collaborate with each other so that the right kind of R&D can be available to the institutions as well as to the students, which in turn would help the manufacturers to adopt the new technologies and innovation to manufacture medical devices that are efficient, that are cost effective, that are suitable for the Indian environment, because Indian environment, unlike the Western environment, are very harsh. If I recall my days at GE, I have worked for 11 years in GE Healthcare. The R&D over there, GE Healthcare had over 1,500 scientists, engineers and PhDs who were working on medical devices for India and globally. And in the later years, more focus was on India and South Asia, where a lot of work was done. And the devices were created not by adopting the devices from the Western countries, but by studying the Indian environment, Indian power requirement, Indian environmental conditions, the rough usage areas that the devices would work on. For example, in the rural areas, in dust-prone areas, in heat and humidity. So all those things had to take into effect. So the corporates today have to invest themselves if they have to do the R&D and manufacture the devices. Whereas if the industry collaborates with the academia, for which the environment is very, very limited, and actually there is very little that has been done. It is only after the COVID pandemic broke that the Prime Minister and the other ministries, including the Health Ministry, started giving emphasis on industry-academia partnerships. I think a lot of collaboration can help in creating new, cost-effective, as well as devices which require the features and facilities for the Indian environment to run in the Indian environment, which would reduce the dependency of India on imports, because a lot of medical devices imported from abroad attract a lot of duties. Earlier there used to be life-saving devices that had 0% duties. Now the duties range from 10% upwards, on medical devices, including the very costly medical devices, for which the affordability of the patients in the private sector, as well as the affordability of the government institutions to procure these kind of medical devices, becomes a little difficult with the reducing of the budgets from the government, even for the government institutions. So I think collaboration between the industry and the academia will help. Small efforts have been made by the Health Minister starting from 2017, but I think even more efforts need to be made so that medical devices of global standards could be manufactured in India at the right price with the right efficiencies.
I would also like to have Mr. Shantanu Pathak's views on this. From an engineer startup, how do you take that India needs to, what kind of initiatives India needs to take in terms of reducing our dependency of 85% imports and a 42,000 crore rupee import bill?
Well, points covered by Abhinav and Parag already. On innovation perspective, and also adding from the engineering perspective, there are immense opportunities for us. So any problem you pick up, we have millions of patients or potential customers who will need intervention for. Now, this very much excites when an innovator or engineer from a college or school think about the problem statement. Now, going from that lab idea to a point where we can build this product is one journey. And I think India as a country have really done great job in last 5 years with the support from DBT, BIRAC, Department of Science and Technology. I have personally received a lot of support on this front, and these efforts are ongoing. The second journey from building the prototype or MVP or proof of concept to getting into the market is very exciting and challenging at the same time. So as an entrepreneur or first generation entrepreneur, we learn a lot of things, but making it a successful product which is accepted and adopted has a lot of steps. So there are few components which I felt I should bring in. One is the validation, clinical validation processes and platforms. We need a good grid of these facilities. If as an innovator I want to get into the ethics committee and from there to testing my product, ethics committee discussions have gone from 1 month of discussion to almost 12 months of discussion for some of the startups. So we need a better platforms to accelerate this process, and for that medical colleges, medical institutions and engineering institutions need to work very closely. However, both the DNA of the both institutions are really different. So some programs which are initiated are going to be really helpful. So collaboration is going to play a huge role in initiating the ideas where problems are realistically identified, and beyond just innovation component, the clinical validation and journey from validation to market need to be accelerated, and without that we will not be able to catch up the speed. So whatever limited number of companies are manufacturing today in India, if we really need to bring the Atmanirbhar Bharat, we need to bring this young youth generation who is going into the medical field, but we need to create a platform where they can accelerate their efforts and reach out to the point where they can bring the product to the market. And that journey has to reduce. Typically it's 7 to 9 years. Can we bring it down? That's typical challenge that we will face if we do not work on validation platforms and opportunities for Indian companies.
Slimari, Mr. Thomas John and Dr. Nilesh. This session is focused more on the medical technology trends and opportunities. And then, this session will be another very interesting session wherein we have people from diverse backgrounds. Somebody like Amit Mohan coming from the industry, GE, and Dr. Taslim Arif, you have heard his credentials, and he's heading the C-Camp in Bangalore, and then has been a host for several startups and a lot of innovation. And Thomas John with his state-of-the-art facility, and Dr. Nilesh Shah is one of the early members of the lab chain group in India. So without taking much time, I would request Mr. Amit Mohan to start the session.
So let's begin. I think good evening, everyone. I welcome you all to the India MedTech eSummit and Awards for 2020. The very fact that we are meeting virtually, and I'm sure that in the past 6 to 8 months, most of us have been a part of many such virtual sessions, which in itself is a kind of a testament to the transforming scenario or the change situation that we all are in. We all know that the change is the only constant, and the present change has been so unrestrained and chaotic to a large extent that it has kind of reset the basic fundamentals. It has reawakened the thoughts in all of us to restart and kind of reimagine and redrawing the future course of action, the way we see it best, what benefits the organization, the ecosystem we thrive in, and the society we work in. As a sector, healthcare has been under tremendous stress because of the ongoing pandemic. So aptly, we are here to seek valuable and experienced insights in this panel discussion on medical technology trends and opportunities. Healthcare is hugely focused in urban and semi-urban geographies of this country. There's an intense need for access to technology, care and services for the vast potential areas of the country. So the quality care, especially critical care, is made available to all affordably. There's also an intense need for the right solutions, especially during pandemic. Medical technology, with medical devices being a key component of the segment, this plays a kind of a key role, a key pivotal role in achieving this objective. And our thoughts, focus, energy today is all directed towards what can be the innovative tools that can be leveraged to optimize customization and access of medical technology for all. What can be the role of a startup in medical technology segment, and how can they scale up to bridge the gap and the huge demand? It was really heartening to listen to Mr. Shantanu Pathak and Mr. Parag Varshney and Mr. Abhinav Thakur and Mr. Rajinath earlier in the earlier panel, and some of the points what they made kind of cues into what we are going to discuss today. As a matter of introduction, my name is Amit Mohan. I take care of the critical care and healthcare digital solutions business for GE Healthcare in South Asia, wherein we are responsible for saving precious lives with our critical care equipments, which would typically be your ICU ventilators, anesthesia workstations, monitoring solutions, diagnostic cardiology, maternal infant care equipments, and importantly, digital healthcare solutions such as digital operation rooms, digital ICUs and NICUs. And today I will also help in moderating this session. Starting the proceedings, on the behalf of HEAL Health Connect Solutions in collaboration with Express Healthcare, I heartily welcome our distinguished panelists and thank them for taking out time from their busy schedule to share their rich experiences from their respective fields. I believe knowledge shared is knowledge squared. So as I introduce our luminary panelists today, we have Dr. Taslim Arif Sayed, who is the CEO at the Center of Cellular and Molecular Platforms, Department of Biotechnology, Ministry of Science and Technology, Government of India. Welcome, Dr. Sayed. We have Mr. Thomas John, who is the CMD and founder of Agape Diagnostics, a reputed vitro diagnostic manufacturing company based out of Cochin. Welcome, Mr. John. And we have Dr. Nilesh Shah with us, who is the president Metropolis Laboratories, Mumbai. He has been one of the founding members of Metropolis Group of Laboratories. Dr. Nilesh Shah is the president and chief of science and innovation at Metropolis Healthcare Limited. Welcome, Dr. Nilesh Shah. Before I proceed any further, I would request the delegates to please keep on posting your questions in the chat window, which we'll try to take in the end, provided time permits, and Dr. Ankit will be coordinating on that. So moving on, as I said, we all are in a situation of great reset, and healthcare sector is under tremendous strain due to enormous stress. In the healthcare value chain, we have multiple stakeholders, and some of the common challenges faced by them are that of awareness, accessibility, affordability for patients, safety, security, skill upgradation, and burnout for the HCPs or healthcare professionals, patient onboarding, offboarding, scheduling, tracking of staff, inventory, billing, etc. for the providers, the hospitals, and the other institutions, reimbursements and claim settlements for the payers, and then the situation is kind of all this complexity and the interwoven nature of the workflows is kind of accentuated by the ongoing pandemic further. So, Dr. Syed, I request you to share your views on what is the current state of healthcare technology and infrastructure in India. How are we encountering the current pandemic, and what are the future exigencies so that we are prepared to take care of all the stakeholders? I welcome Dr. Taslim Arif Syed to share his views.
From a perspective of where we are, that is CCAM, the virtual background that you see here, we are largely involved in fostering deep science innovations, and we are primarily, slowly and steadily getting a, kind of a grip on in terms of how do you actually handhold and nurture innovation for all the way. When you talk about an organization, we largely talk about early, proof of concept studies and so on, but soon we realize that there is a longer journey. From that perspective now, if I may add and respond to your question, I think we are seeing a phenomenal surge in terms of what we are doing in healthcare, in terms of medical devices or medtech. It's absolutely mind-boggling that what we are doing. And I would then connect to the current situation in pandemic, but I'll just take 1 minute and possibly say that in last 8 to 10 years, we are seeing a fantastic innovation attempts which are happening, which are very important because we realize that many on-ground problems or the societal healthcare problems are largely very specific in nature and require a specifically molded innovations which are indigenous in nature. Otherwise, what would happen is that there is a mismatch. That is, the final fitting actually becomes an issue that relates to the infrastructure aspect, relates to the human resource aspect, and so on. On the ground, we have to have an ear on the ground to understand the problems and the healthcare innovation, and that's where I think the change has happened since 2011-12 onwards. Government has put in efforts to foster innovations, and we are seeing hundreds of those innovations coming together who are challenging the best of the world, which is good for all of us. Who are the young, talented innovators are challenging the devices which are made by the equivalents of Philips, Siemens, anyone whom we can talk about, like even Agape and so on, who are good friends of ours. So what's happening? So it's very good, interesting things are happening. If I may connect very quickly so that I don't take up too much time. In this pandemic, that spirit has come to use phenomenally. The reason being that when pandemic came and we were hoping, quote unquote, that it would only do a few geographies in India may not have it. In March end, we realized that we are not necessarily disconnected now, right? And then it would become to us. But at that time, we were unprepared, and we should possibly, accept that we were not exactly prepared. So when we are unprepared means that we did not have solutions to respond to that. What was happening? We were always had healthcare solutions coming from somewhere.
Well, suddenly the gap in healthcare infrastructure has been looking gaping as demand has surged exponentially. So as manufacturers, how are we doing to meet the market demand, and what are we doing to ramp up the technology, and how are we enhancing our productivity? I request Mr. John to enlighten us with his insights and experience.
Yeah, thanks to eHealth Solutions, my friend Dr. Shiva, then thanks to Amit. Actually, as the local in vitro diagnostics manufacturer, mainly our focus, maybe last 20 years, we always focus on quality, then innovation, affordability, and a total solution. This is very, very important. And we realize the importance of R&D and the local infrastructure, because in today, I would say that in Indian context, many people or many IVD industry, I'm talking particularly about the IVD industry, always people prefer to take shortcuts like becoming like a small time manufacturer or distributor. So now in our case, first we have focused on the R&D, and then we have made the infrastructure. That really helps us. Last 10 years, we have developed our own product. One of the product is, especially in the protein estimations, which is, really helping now in the, post-COVID diseases like different diseases. The product like D-dimer, ferritin and all, we are managing in India with good solutions. The R&D, according to me, that we can have own R&D, but again, lot of industrial association, lot of academical association, and again we can have lot of different institutional participations or different industrial participations. For example, now last month we have launched the first time the 3-part hematology systems in India with an association of one of the biggest technological industry, which L&T. Then again, we are coming with some new products with some multinational company where we have taken their help also. Now, last week we have launched a alternative to confirmatory test for COVID, that is RT-LAMP, first time in India, again with the association of a Japanese giant. So, but what we are doing is that we are bringing this some of the expertise from these big companies and we have made it as a the product which can be feasible for Indian context. According to me, that about 65 to 70,000 laboratories are there, where out of that 35 to 40,000 laboratories are in the rural. That means tier 2 and tier 3 cities, where we can manufacture, or we should focus for that sort of laboratories on primary phase. So that is what we are doing. And always we have made our infrastructure way back maybe about 5 to 6 years ago itself. So that is really helping us to really giving these products and solutions to the market now at this pandemic situation.
Will we actually be grappling with these kind of situations, and it's good to see that kind of enthusiasm and passion to have that kind of a global perspective, but at the same time a kind of a local solution. We have talked about research and manufacturing in healthcare. So from the patient diagnostic perspective, it's an integral part and often the first step of therapeutic pathway. How are we leveraging the diagnostic infrastructure in India to meet the current demand? And what are the future requirements to face the current challenges? I welcome Dr. Nilesh Shah to put forth his remarks.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for invite Amit, Dr. Shiva. Probably I am the only one on user side, so I'll just share some experiences. In my 35 years of career, I would say last 7-8 months have been unusually different. I would say this last 7-8 months experience was something like few years of experience. I have never seen operational collapse anytime, and I first time witnessed some operational collapse. Not only in Metropolis, but all the chain labs or many of the large labs, I've seen that collapse happening, where we were very sensitive to customers' requirement, patients' requirement, doctors' requirement. Somehow we fell short of it. So, generally in the forums we want to talk about positive. I'm going to share lots of negatives which have happened. We have at times not been able to meet turnaround time. We had a situation where we had to refuse the test and so on. We had faced regulatory challenges. the government, everything happened not only to us but many. Now this was not intentional. This was a pandemic situation. Everyone was trying to struggle and make a way ahead. If I have to narrate few of the challenges, which will be good for the audience to know, one of the biggest challenge which I face is getting the staff to work, and we had to do a lot of motivational exercise to ensure that they come on board. We had challenges to service because phlebotomists would not like to collect, they were scared. We had challenges of logistics because of lockdowns. Movement of samples were challenged, so we can't meet turnaround time. We had a lot of issues related to even data management. The regulatory expectations were so high that every sample you collect, you have to give comprehensive data. The data has to be accurate, and in case data is not accurate anywhere, you get straight away show cause notice. So I have received good number of show cause notices, and this expertise I never developed in my life. I started developing expertise of how to reply to show cause notices. This also has been one of the experiences. So I know we have to move to technology side. I will soon move to what we did on technology front. But few of these things are very important for you to know as a base before I take another area. There have been a lot of regulatory challenge where India is a very large country and we do not have uniform regulations across. If I say Bombay lab, which is a COVID testing lab, just Bombay alone is connected to 12 different municipal corporations. So, Virar will be different, Thane will be different, Ambernath, Badlapur will be, every operation has a different requirement. You have to give report differently, you have to give MIS differently. All this to do manually within right turnaround time when your manpower is less and no automation is available was a big challenge. I'm going to connect all this, how we bridge the gap and how did we introduce automation.
To everyone. But maybe before that, I would just want a quick 2-minute kind of views from Mr. Anil Johri and Mr. Saurabh Bhattacharya, especially looking at post-COVID opportunity in medical devices, and a very short kind of views on this particular post-COVID opportunity, and just be brief and precise so that we can take some notes from here, and I can relate that to the topic and we can proceed further on that. So over to you, Mr. Johri, some views on post-COVID opportunity on medical devices sector.
Represents a huge opportunity. We have seen one area of, for example, PPEs grow so tremendously in India. We are seeing a similar kind of spurt in ventilators. So these are additional opportunities to what existed even earlier. To that extent, we have tremendous opportunities as far as medical devices are concerned. But I guess the absence of regulatory regime will be a problem, which I intend that we discuss later on. We do not have, as of now, a fully regulated medical devices sector, which is an issue in any case. So just these initial thoughts.
Some of your thoughts on post-COVID opportunity in medical devices. You have been at the helm of some innovative medtech startups contributing to affordable, medical devices segment. So Saurabh, over to you for some quick views. How do you see this segment or this sector post-COVID going, in terms of growth and challenges?
Thanks, Vivek. I'll just suggest one paradigm to think about how the world might work post-COVID, which is, from hospital beds to beds at home. Meaning that the one thing that the pandemic has exposed in our system is this tremendous shortage, demand-supply gap that any WHO report you pick up for the last 20 years, you get the same number. India has 1/10 the number of doctors, 1/10 the number of nurses, 1/5 the number of beds than the global average. Now, what the pandemic has forced us to do is to, I think about how you have enough beds for all citizens of the country. May not be enough hospital beds for all citizens of the country. So I think that's a big change in, thinking. And with that, it drives self-care, some level of care at home. telemedicine, teleconsultation. So I think those, from being interesting ideas that are being explored by various folks, I think now they become a compelling need if you need to cover and genuinely cater to the healthcare needs of the country. So I think that's one fundamental way in which we'll rethink how healthcare is delivered.
Quick view was on post-COVID opportunity in medical devices, and just wanted your 2-minute kind of thoughts around it.
Post-COVID, I think we have to look at what we have lost in COVID, not as industry, but as patients. We have lost on cardiac care. We have lost on radiology. People have not even gone to an X-ray room to get a chest X-ray done for pneumonia. We have lost on due to fear and also due to health facilities being dedicated for COVID. We have lost big time on cancer care. We have lost big time on gastroenterology. People have not been going for colonoscopy, gastroscopy or any invasive procedure because they are risky. They might contract infection otherwise. And I think these were strong baseline diseases in India. 1 year of neglect has almost tripled the burden on the healthcare facilities. So post-COVID care, I would, besides, I'm sure, Mr. Vivek Tiwari, you yourself are a big champion of on-site delivery and on-site care. But besides telemedicine care and home-based care, I think cancer, radiology, gastroenterology and cardiac care, devices and products associated with these disease groups would become a priority because we are looking at a very unmasked burden. Suddenly, when these 4 disease spectrums face to face glare at us, it would be much more bigger calamity than COVID. Because these are non-communicable diseases. The cases you miss today become untreatable after 1 year. As simple acidities can become a bursting of lining of esophagus. So these are things that would glare at us, stare at us, and I think very quickly we need innovations and low-cost devices around these portfolios. Thankfully, the PLI scheme, which I was associated with as chair of the drafting committee, these guidelines have also prioritized these devices, which means anybody who gets into manufacturing of devices in these segments would get 5% additional benefit.